Hello, people. How are you? It is one of those days where I almost didn't do this, but then I thought of the history. We do have history. We have 101 days of history. So I crawled out of bed and put on a coat. Fucking freezing. And I just sat. I sat and I got distracted, and then I undistracted myself, and now I'm here. So today we're gonna do 2 Kings chapters 4 through 7, and then Psalms 102. Yeah. There are no links or nothing in the description. Really, because there was nothing there in the plan. No link. Where's my plan? These are all the plans. I just want my plan. Am I singing? Oh, that's the problem. Nope, I'm gonna do it from my phone today since I already went live and I would have to switch stuff to go and sign in. That's fine too, okay, baby? Elisha helps a poor widow. One day, the widow of a member of the group of prophets that came to Elijah and cried out, "My husband who served you is dead, and you know how he feared the Lord. But now a creditor has come, threatening to take my 2 sons as slaves. What can I do to help you?" Elijah said. "Tell me, what do you have in the house?" "Nothing at all, except for a flask of olive oil," she replied. And Elijah said, "Borrow as many jars as you can from your friends and neighbors. Then go into your house with your sons and shut the door behind you. Pour olive oil from your flask into the jars, setting each aside when it is filled." So she did as she was told. Her sons kept bringing jars to her, and she filled one after another. Soon every container was full to the brim. "Bring me another jar," she said to one of her sons. "There aren't any more," he told her, and then the olive oil stopped flowing. When she told the man of God what had happened, he said to her, "Now sell the olive oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on what's left over." Elijah and the woman from Shunem. That's kind of cool because that's indicative of, like, remember when Elijah was being fed by the widow and all she had was her flour and olive oil, and it kept flowing. It just kept flowing. There was always food to eat. So it's magic jars again. Elijah and the woman from Shunem. One day Elijah went to the town of Shunem. A wealthy woman lived there, and she urged him to come to her home for a meal. After that, whenever he passed that way, he would stop there for something to eat. She said to her husband, "I am sure this man who stops in from time to time is a holy man of God. Let's build a small room for him on the roof and furnish it with a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. Then he will have a place to stay whenever he comes by. One day Elijah returned to Shunem, um, Shunem, yeah, and he went up to this upper room to rest. He said to his servant Gehazi, "Tell the woman from Shunem I want to speak to her." When she appeared, Elijah said to Gehazi, "Tell her, we appreciate the kind concern you have shown us. What can we do for you? Can we put in a good word for you to the king or to the commander of the army?" "No," she replied. "My family takes good care of me." Later, Elisha asked Gehazi, "What can we do for her?" Gehazi replied, "She doesn't have a son, and her husband is an old man." "Call her back again," Elijah told him. When the woman returned, Elijah said to her as she stood in the doorway, "Next year at this time you will be holding a son in your arms." "No, my lord," she cried. "Oh, man of God, don't deceive me and get my hopes up like that." But sure enough, the woman soon became pregnant, and at that time the following year she had a son, just as Elisha had said. One day, when her child was older, he went out to help his father, who was working with the harvesters. Suddenly he cried out, "My head hurts, my head hurts." His father said to one of the servants, "Carry him home to his mother." So the servants took him home, and his mother held him on her lap. But around noontime he died. She carried him up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, then shut the door and left him there. She sent a message to her husband, "Send one of the servants and a donkey so that I can hurry to the man of God and come right back." "Why go today?" he asked. It is neither a new moon festival nor a Sabbath." But she said, "It will be all right." So she saddled the donkey, and she didn't even tell him. So she saddled the donkey and said to the servant, "Hurry. Don't slow down unless I tell you to." As she approached the man of God at Mount Carmel, Elisha saw her in the distance. He said to Gehazi, "Look at the woman from Shunem is coming. Run out to meet her and ask her, is everything all right with you, your husband, and your child?" "Yes," the woman told Gehazi, "everything is fine." But when she came to the man of God at the mountain, she fell to the ground before him and caught hold of his feet. Gehazi began to push her away, but the man of God said, "Leave her alone. She is deeply troubled, but the Lord has not told me what it is." Then she said, "Did I ask you for a son, my Lord? And didn't I say, 'Don't deceive me and get my hopes up'?" Then Elijah said to Gehazi, "Get ready to travel. Take my staff and go. Don't talk to anyone along the way. Go quickly and lay the staff on the child's face." But the boy's mother said, "As surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I won't go home unless you go with me." So Elisha returned with her. Gehazi hurried on ahead and laid the staff on the child's face, but nothing happened. There was no sign of life. He returned to meet Elijah and told him, "The child is still dead." When Elisha arrived, the child was indeed dead, lying there on the prophet's bed. He went in alone and shut the door behind him and prayed to the Lord. Then he lay down on the child's body, placing his mouth on the child's mouth, his eyes on the child's eyes, and his hands on the child's hands. And as he stretched out on him, the child's body began to grow warm again. Elijah got up, walked back and forth across the room once, and then stretched himself out again on the child. This time the boy sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. Then Elijah summoned Gehazi. "Call the child's mother," he said. And when she came in, Elijah said, "Here, take your son." She fell at his feet and bowed before him, overwhelmed with gratitude. Then she took her son in her arms and carried him downstairs. So this is again mimicking this whole scenario with the widow between Elijah and Elisha. This is the second widow's son. She's not even a widow. This woman isn't a widow, but this mimics one of the things that one of the miracles that Elijah himself had performed in returning a son back to life after stretching out over him. Miracles during a famine. Elijah now returned to Gilgal, and there was a famine in the land. One day, as the group of prophets was seated before him, he said to his servant, "Put a large pot on the fire and make some stew for the rest of the group." One of the young men went out into the field to gather herbs and came back with a pocket full of wild gourds. He shredded them and put them into the pot without realizing they were poisonous. Some of the stew was already served to the men, but after they had eaten a bite or two, they cried out, "Man of God, there's poison in this stew," so they would not eat it. Elijah said, "Bring me some flour." Then he threw it into the pot and said, "Now it is all right. Go ahead and eat." And they did, and then it did not harm them. One day a man from Baal Shalisha brought the man Shalisha and brought the man of God a sack of fresh grain and a bag of fresh grain and 20 loaves of barley bread made from the first grain of his harvest. Elijah said, "Give it to the people so they can eat." "What?" his servant exclaimed. "Feed 100 people with only this." But Elijah repeated, "Give it to the people so they can eat, for this is what the Lord says. Everyone will eat, and there will even be some left over." And when they gave it to the people, there was plenty for all, and some left over, just as the Lord had promised. The healing of Naaman. The healing of Naaman. The king of Aram. Oh wait, let me pause. Isn't that kind of like the fish? Was it fish? Wow. You know, when Jesus feeds the people over a little, God is just showing that God has the power of provision, right? So the idea that you're gonna have lack is there will be more than enough. You'll have leftovers, but there will always be an abundance, even if it looks like you are lacking. Even if it looks like you're lacking. Okay, so the man of Naaman, the healing of Naaman. The king of Aram had a great admiration for Naaman, the commander of his army, because through him the Lord had given Aram great victories, but though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. At this time, Aramean raiders had invaded the land of Israel, and among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid. One day the girl said to her mistress, "I wish my master would go to see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy." So Naaman told the king that what the girl from Israel had said. "Go and visit the prophet," the king of Aram told him. "I will send a letter of introduction for you to take to the king of Israel." So Naaman started out carrying as gifts 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter to the king of Israel said, "With this letter I present my servant Naaman. I want you to heal him of his leprosy." When the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes in dismay and said, Am I God, that I can give life and take it away? Why is this man asking me to heal someone with leprosy? I can see that he's just trying to pick a fight with me. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes in dismay, he sent this message to him: "Why are you so upset? Send Naaman to me, and he will learn that there is a true prophet here in Israel." So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and waited at the door of Elisha's house. But Elisha sent a messenger out to him with this message: "Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored, and you will be healed of your leprosy." But Naaman became angry and stalked away. "I thought he would certainly come out to meet me," he said. "I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. Aren't there rivers in Damascus, the Abana and the Pharpar, better than any of the rivers of Israel?" I'm sorry for the way I am. Hello. Seems like we're back. And up again. And with that, I'm just gonna let me fix this. Yeah, that's why yo was off. Alright, cool. So we'll just go from here, and I'm gonna reposition myself. And I wanted to try out my headphones. I got these today. They're bulky, like super bulky. But I'm hoping that this mic will be better moving forward. So let's see. Where were we? We got cut off. So I'm not really sure where to pick up from. I'm thinking that the best spot is 2 Kings 5 verse 11. But Naaman became angry and stalked away. "I thought he would certainly come out to meet me," he said. "I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. Aren't the rivers of Damascus, the Abana and the Pharpar better than any of the rivers of Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed?" So Naaman turned and went away in a rage, but his officers tried to reason with him and said, "Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply go and wash and be cured." So Naaman went down to the Jordan River and dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him, and his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed. Then Naaman and his entire party went back to the man of God. They stood before him, and Naaman said, "Now I know there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant." But Elisha replied, "As surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept any gifts." And though Naaman urged him to take the gift, Elijah refused. Then Naaman said, "All right, but please allow me to load 2 of my mules with earth from this place, and I will take it back home with me. From now on, I will never again offer burnt offerings or sacrifices to any other god except the Lord. However, may the Lord pardon me in this one thing. When my master the king goes into the temple of the god Ramon to worship there and leans on my arm, may the Lord pardon me when I bow too." "Go in peace," Elijah said. So Naaman started home again. The greed of Gehazi. But Gehazi, the servant of Elijah, the man of God, said to himself, "My master should not have let the Aramean get away without accepting any of his gifts. As surely as the Lord lives, I will chase after him and get something from him." So Gehazi set off after Naaman. When Naaman saw Gehazi running after him, he climbed down from his chariot and went to meet him. "Is everything all right?" Naaman asked. "Yes," Gehazi said, "but my master has sent me to tell you that 2 young prophets from the hill country of Ephraim have just arrived. He would like 75 pounds of silver and 2 sets of clothing to give to them." "By all means, take twice as much silver," Naaman insisted. He gave him 2 sets of clothing, tied up the money in 2 bags, and sent 2 of his servants to carry the gifts for Gehazi. But when they arrived at the citadel, Gehazi took the gifts from the servants and sent the men back. Then he went and hid the gifts inside his house. When he went to his master, Elijah asked him, "Where have you been, Gehazi?" "I haven't been anywhere," he replied. But Elijah asked him, Don't you realize that I was there in spirit when Naaman stepped down from his chariot to meet you? Is this the time to receive money and clothing, olive groves and vineyards, sheep and cattle, and male and female servants? Because you have done this, you and your descendants will suffer from Naaman's leprosy forever." When Gehazi left the room, he was covered with leprosy. His skin was white as snow. The floating axe head. One day the group of prophets came to Elijah and told him, "As you can see, this place where we meet with you is too small. Let's go down to the Jordan River, where there are plenty of logs. There we can build a new place for us to meet." "All right," he told them. "Go ahead." "Please come with us," someone suggested. "I will," he said. So he went with them. When they arrived at the Jordan, they began cutting down trees, but as one of them was cutting a tree, his axe head fell into the river. "Oh, sir," he cried, "it was a borrowed axe." "Where did it fall?" the man of God asked. And then he showed him the place. Elijah cut a stick and threw it into the water at the spot. Then the axe head floated to the surface. "Grab it," Elijah said, and the man reached out and grabbed it. Elijah traps the Arameans. When the king of Aram was at war with Israel, he would confer with his officers and say, "We will mobilize our forces at such and such a place." But immediately Elijah, the man of God, would warn the king of Israel, "Do not go near that place, for the Arameans are planning to mobilize their troops there." So the king of Israel would send word to the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again Elijah warned the king so that he would be on alert there. The king of Aram became very upset over this. He called his officers together and demanded, "Which one of you is the traitor? Who has been informing the king of Israel of my plans?" "It is not us, my lord the king," one of the officers replied. "Elijah the prophet in Israel tells the king of Israel even the words you speak in the privacy of your bedroom. Go and find out where he is," the king commanded, "so I can send troops to seize him. And the report came back, Elijah is in Dothan. So one night the king of Aram sent a great army with many chariots and horses to surround the city. When the servant of the man of God got up early the next morning and went outside, there were troops, horses, and chariots everywhere. "Oh, sir, what will we do now?" The young man cried to Elijah. Oh, so this is just a random young man? Okay. "Don't be afraid," Elijah told him, "for there are more on our side than on theirs." Then Elijah prayed, "O Lord, open his eyes and let him see." The Lord opened the young man's eyes, and when he looked up, he saw that the hillside around Elijah was filled with horses and chariots of fire. As the Aramean army advanced toward him, Elijah prayed, "O Lord, please make them blind." So the Lord struck them with blindness as Elijah had asked. Then Elijah went out and told them, "You have come the wrong way. This isn't the right city. Follow me. I will take you to the man you are looking for." And he led them to the city of Samaria. As soon as they had entered Samaria, Elijah prayed, "O Lord, now open their eyes and let them see." So the Lord opened their eyes, and they discovered that they were in the middle of Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he shouted to Elijah, "My father, should I kill them? Should I kill them?" "Of course not," Elijah replied. "Do we kill prisoners of war? Give them food and drink and send them home again to their masters." So the king made a great feast for them and then sent them home to their master. After that, the Aramean raiders stayed away from the land of Israel. Ben-Hadad besieges Samaria. Sometime later, however, King Ben-Hadad of Aram mustered his entire army and besieged Samaria. As a result, there was a great famine in the city. The siege lasted so long that a donkey's head sold for 80 pieces of silver, and a cup of dove's dung sold for 5 pieces of silver. But, what? Is that like medicine or something? Dove's dung may be a variety of wild vegetable. That makes more sense. Okay. One day, as the king of Israel was walking along the wall of the city, a woman called to him, "Please help me, my lord the king." He answered, "If the Lord doesn't help you, what can I do? I have neither food from the threshing floor nor wine from the press to give you." But then the king asked, "What is the matter?" She replied, "This woman said to me, 'Come on, let's eat your son today. Then we will eat my son tomorrow.' So we cooked my son and ate him. Then the next day I said to her, 'Kill your son so we can eat him.' But she has hidden her son." When the king heard this, he tore his clothes in despair, and as the king walked along the wall, the people could see that he was wearing burlap under his robe next to his skin. "May God strike me and even kill me if I don't separate Elijah's head from his shoulders this very day," the king vowed. Elijah was sitting down. I'm sorry, what? Why are we targeting Elijah now? Okay, sometime later, how the king besieged the Samaria. And this is, okay, so they're at a long-standing war. And so now the king of Israel is walking along, and I'm a little confused. Hold on. Let me not be so confused. Okay, so there's a long-standing war. This is after Elijah had trapped them with blindness or whatever. So the king comes and he's attacking the city once again. Is this the same king? Maybe it's a different king. It doesn't matter. So then he's attacking, and as a result of this fight, there's an immense famine. And as a result of this fight, there's an immense famine going on. Okay. The siege lasted so long that a donkey's head sold for 80 pieces of silver, and a cup of dove's dung sold for 5 pieces of silver. Okay, so it was food's selling for that much because it's rare, right? Because it's hard to come by. So the price of food is skyrocketed, essentially. Now, one day, as the king of Israel is walking along the wall of the city, a woman called out to him, "Please help me, my lord the king." Right? And he answered, the king of Israel answers her, "What could I do for you? I don't have food or wine." But then he continues and he asks, "What's the matter?" And the woman tells her about the story about the son being cooked so that they can eat. And when the king heard this, he falls into despair and he gets super upset, as is logical. But then he goes in and he says, "May God strike me and even kill me if I don't separate Elijah's head from his soldiers this very day." From his shoulders this very day. What does Elijah have to do with this? Elijah was sitting in his house when the elders of Israel, he was sitting in his house with the elders of Israel when the king sent a message to summon him. But before the messenger arrived, Elijah said to the elders, "A murderer has sent a man to cut off my head. When he arrives, shut the door and keep him out. We will soon hear his master's steps following him." While Elijah was still saying this, the messenger arrived, and the king said, "All this misery is from the Lord. Why should I wait for the Lord any longer?" Wait, so you are vowing to the Lord to kill off one of the Lord's people because you don't want to wait to the Lord? You vow to the Lord, the person you refuse to wait for, that you're going to kill off one of his prophets, the man who truly serves him and is in great, is a powerful man of God. Because you think all your misery stems from him. Elijah replied, "Listen to this message from the Lord. This is what the Lord says. By this time tomorrow, the markets of Samaria, 6 quarts of choice flour will cost only 1 piece of silver, and 12 quarts of barley grain will cost only 1 piece of silver." The officer the officer assisting the king said to the man of God, "That couldn't happen even if the Lord opened the windows of heaven." But Elijah replied, You will see it happen with your own eyes, but you won't be able to eat any of it. Outcasts visit the enemy camp. Now there were 4 men with leprosy sitting at the entrance of the city gates. Why should we sit here waiting to die? They asked each other. We will starve if we stay here, but with the famine in the city, we will starve if we go back there. So we might as well go out and surrender to the Armenian army. If they let us live, so much the better. But if they kill us, we would have died anyway. So at twilight, they set out to the camp of the Armenians. But when they came to the edge of the camp, no one was there, for the Lord had caused the Armenian army to hear the clatter of speeding chariots and the galloping of horses and the sound of a great army approaching. The king of Israel has hired the Hittites and Egyptians to attack us, they cried to one another. So they panicked and ran into the night, abandoning their tents, horses, donkeys, and everything else as they fled for their lives. When the men with leprosy arrived at the edge of the camp, they went into one tent after another, eating and drinking wine, and they carried off silver and gold and clothing and hid it. Finally, they said to each other, "This is not right. This is a day of good news. We aren't sharing it with anyone. If we wait until morning, some calamity will certainly fall upon us. Come on, let's go back and tell the people at the palace." So they went back to the city and told the gatekeepers what had happened. "We went out to the Armenian camp," they said. "No one was there. The horses and donkeys were tethered and the tents were all in order, but there wasn't a single person around." When the gatekeepers shouted the news to the people in the palace, "Israel plunders the camp." The king got out of bed in the middle of the night and told his officers, "I know what has happened. The Armenians know we are starving, so they have left their camp and have hidden in the fields. They are expecting us to leave the city, and then they will take us alive and capture the city." One of the officers replied, "We had better send out scouts to check into this. Let them take 5 of the remaining horses. If something happens to them, it will be no worse than if they stay here and die with the rest of us." So 2 chariots with horses were prepared, and the king sent scouts to see what had happened to the Armenian army. They went all the way to the Jordan River, following a trail of clothing and equipment that the Armenians had thrown away in their mad rush to escape. The scouts returned and told the king about it. Then the people of Samaria rushed out and plundered the Armenian camp. So it was true that 6 quarts of choice flour were sold that day for 1 piece of silver, and 12 quarts of barley grain were sold for 1 piece of silver, just as the Lord had promised. The king appointed his officer to control the traffic at the gate, but he was knocked down and trampled to death as the people rushed out. So everything happened exactly as the man of God had predicted when the king came to his house. Then the man of God had said to the king, "By this time tomorrow, the markets of Samaria, 6 quarts of choice flour will cost 1 piece of silver, and 12 quarts of barley grain will cost 1 piece of silver." The king's officer had replied, "That couldn't happen even if the Lord opened the windows of heaven." And the man of God said, "You will see it happen with your own eyes, but you won't be able to eat any of it." And so it was, for the people trampled him to death at the gate. Psalm 102. A prayer of one overwhelmed with trouble, pouring out problems before the Lord. Lord, hear my prayer. Listen to my plea. Don't turn away from me in my time of distress. In my time... I doubled back. Don't turn away from me in my time of distress. Bend down to listen and answer me quickly when I call you. For my days disappear like smoke and my burns burn like red-hot coals. My heart is sick, withered like grass, and I have lost my appetite. Because of my groaning, I am reduced to skin and bones. I am like an owl in the desert, like a little owl in a far-off wilderness. I lie awake, lonely as a solitary bird on the roof. My enemies taunt me day after day. They mock and curse me. I eat ashes for food. My tears run down into my drink because of your anger and wrath, for you have picked me up and thrown me out. My life passes as swiftly as the evening shadows. I am withering away like grass. But you, O Lord, will sit on your throne forever. Your fame will endure to every generation. You will arise and have mercy on Jerusalem. And now is the time to pity her. Now is the time you promised to help. For your people love every stone in her walls and cherish even the dust in her streets. Then the nations will tremble before the Lord. The kings of the earth will tremble before his glory. For the Lord will rebuild Jerusalem. He will appear in his glory. He will listen to the prayers of the destitute. He will not reject their pleas. Listen to their pleas. Let this be recorded for future generations, so that a people not yet born will praise the Lord. Tell them the Lord looked down from his heavenly sanctuary. He looked down to the earth from heaven to hear the groans of the prisoners, to release those condemned to die. And so the Lord's fame will be celebrated in Zion, his praises in Jerusalem, when multitudes gather together and kingdoms come to worship the Lord. He broke my strength in midlife, cutting short my days. But I cried to him, "O my God, who lives forever, don't take my life while I am so young." Long ago you laid the foundations of the earth and made the heavens with your hands. They will perish, but you will remain forever. They will wear out like old clothing. You will change them like a garment and discard them, but you will always be the same. You will live forever. The children of your people will live in security. The children's children will thrive in your presence. And that is today. That is the reading of, day 102. So now we gotta get to day 103. And the goal is day 158. And I'm gonna keep trucking as much as I can keep trucking. And Lord, thank you for being gentle with me. That's all. Bye-bye. Bye. Yeah, bye-bye. Oh, okay. And